The Vrakthos Empire had ruled the Orion sector for 300 years. Their massive warships blocked out the stars wherever they traveled. Their soldiers marched through conquered worlds with weapons that could turn entire cities to ash. Every species that lived under their shadow knew one simple truth. Resistance meant death. Obedience meant survival. There was no third option. When the Vrakthos first discovered humanity, they laughed. The small blue planet called Earth seemed like nothing special. The humans had barely reached their nearest planets. Their ships were slow and primitive. Their weapons were toys compared to Vrakthos technology. The Empire sent a single fleet to claim humanity's small corner of space. They expected the conquest to take 3 days at most. It took 17 years. The humans fought with a fury that shocked the Vrakthos commanders. They did not surrender when their cities burned. They did not kneel when their leaders fell. Every street became a battlefield. Every building became a fortress. The humans invented new weapons faster than the Vrakthos could adapt to them. They learned Vrakthos tactics and turned them against their enemies. They sacrificed everything they had, but they refused to break. In the end, the Vrakthos won through sheer numbers. Millions of soldiers poured onto Earth until the human resistance finally crumbled. The survivors were scattered across the sector. Some became slaves in Vrakthos mines. Others were sent to labor camps on frozen moons. The luckiest ones escaped into the shadows of space, hiding in asteroid belts and abandoned stations. Earth itself was left as a burnt monument to the cost of defying the Empire. The Vrakthos believed they had crushed humanity forever. They were wrong. Admiral Helena Cross stood on the bridge of the battleship Vengeance and stared at the holographic map before her. The lights of Vrakthos-controlled systems glowed red across the display. There were hundreds of them spread across the sector like drops of blood. At the center of the map, one system pulsed brighter than all the others. Vrakthos Prime, the heart of the Empire. The throne of the Tyrants who had destroyed her world. Helena was only 7 years old when the Vrakthos came to Earth. She remembered watching the sky fill with enemy ships. She remembered her mother hiding her in a basement while explosions shook the ground above. She remembered the day her father was taken away by Vrakthos soldiers and never returned. Those memories had burned inside her for 40 years. Now she commanded the largest fleet humanity had ever built, and she intended to make the Vrakthos pay for every tear she had shed. The Imperial human fleet had been constructed in secret. Deep in the uncharted regions beyond Vrakthos patrols, humanity had built shipyards hidden inside hollowed asteroids. They had gathered survivors from 100 scattered colonies. They had trained soldiers who had never known a home that was not under enemy occupation. They had developed weapons that combined human creativity with stolen Vrakthos technology. For 30 years, they had worked in silence. Now, they were ready. The fleet numbered over 800 warships. The smallest were fast destroyers bristling with missiles. The largest were dreadnoughts carrying enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Every ship bore the same symbol on its hull, a black eagle rising from flames, the symbol of the human empire that would replace the ashes of the old Earth. Helena had designed it herself, and she wore a silver version on her chest like a badge of honor. Commander Marcus Stone walked to her side. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars across his face from battles too numerous to count. He had served with Helena for 20 years. He trusted her completely, but he could see the tension in her shoulders as she studied the map. "The scouts have returned," Marcus said. "The Vrakthos have no idea we are coming. Their border patrols are spread thin. They have become lazy after so many years of peace." Helena nodded slowly. "They forgot what humans are capable of. They thought breaking us once meant breaking us forever. Today, we remind them of their mistake." She turned to face the officers assembled on the bridge. Every one of them had lost something to the Vrakthos. Parents, children, homes, entire worlds. They looked at her with eyes full of fire and determination. They had waited their entire lives for this moment. Send the signal to all ships, Helena commanded. We jump in 1 hour. Our first target is the Cathara system. It is the main supply hub for the entire sector. When it falls, the Vrakthos will know that humanity has returned. The jump through hyperspace took only minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Helena gripped the arms of her command chair as reality twisted around the ship. Then the stars reappeared, and she saw the Cathara system spread before her like a gift. The system was rich with resources. Mining stations orbited 3 planets. Cargo ships floated beside massive refineries. A dozen Vrakthos warships guarded the area, but they were old models with outdated weapons. They had never expected a threat from this direction. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm breaking through the sky. 800 ships appeared in perfect formation, their weapons already charging. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Vrakthos commanders stared at their sensors in disbelief. They had no records of such a fleet. They had no idea where it had come from. Then the Vengeance opened fire, and the battle began. Helena watched through the viewport as beams of energy sliced through the first Vrakthos ship. Its hull split apart in a silent explosion of metal and flame. The other enemy vessels tried to react, but they were too slow. Human missiles streaked across the void in waves. Human fighters swarmed around the larger ships like angry hornets. The Vrakthos defense grid crumbled in less than 20 minutes. When the fighting ended, the human fleet had not lost a single vessel. The Cathara system belonged to humanity once more. Word of the attack spread through the sector like wildfire. Vrakthos commanders demanded answers. How had humans built such a fleet? Where had they been hiding? How could a species that was supposed to be broken have struck such a devastating blow? The Emperor himself called an emergency council to address the threat. But Helena did not give them time to respond. Over the next 3 months, the human fleet struck target after target. They attacked military bases and destroyed them completely. They raided supply convoys and left nothing behind. They freed prisoners from labor camps and welcomed them into their ranks. With each victory, the fleet grew stronger. Survivors from oppressed colonies joined the cause. Other species who had suffered under Vrakthos rule sent ships and soldiers to fight alongside humanity. The Vrakthos tried to stop them. They gathered their greatest fleets and sent them to crush the rebellion. But the humans had learned from their first defeat centuries ago. They no longer fought with raw courage alone. They used strategy and deception. They lured enemy fleets into traps. They struck from unexpected directions. They vanished into hyperspace before reinforcements could arrive. Admiral Helena Cross became a legend. The Vrakthos called her the ghost of humanity. They said she could not be killed because she was already dead. They said she was a vengeful spirit sent to punish them for their crimes. Soldiers who faced her in battle reported seeing a woman who showed no fear, no hesitation, and no mercy. The turning point came at the Battle of Varos Prime. The Vrakthos had assembled their largest fleet in generations. 3,000 warships gathered around a fortress world bristling with weapons. They believed this force would be enough to end the human threat forever. Helena had different plans. She split her fleet into 3 groups. The first group attacked the fortress world directly, drawing the attention of the Vrakthos commanders. The second group hid behind a nearby gas giant, waiting for the perfect moment. The third group, led by Helena herself, jumped to the far side of the system and targeted the enemy supply lines. The battle lasted 18 hours. The space around Varos Prime filled with burning wreckage and drifting bodies. The Vrakthos fought with desperate fury, but the humans fought with something stronger. They fought with purpose. They fought for revenge. They fought for the future of their species. When the smoke cleared, the Vrakthos had lost 2,000 ships. Their fortress world had fallen. Their greatest fleet had been shattered beyond repair. The road to Vrakthos Prime lay open. The Emperor of the Vrakthos received the news in his golden palace. He had ruled for 500 years. He had crushed 100 rebellions. He had never known fear. But as he watched the reports of human ships moving toward his homeworld, something cold settled in his heart. He tried to negotiate. He sent messages offering peace and territory. He promised to free all human prisoners. He even offered to recognize humanity as equals within the Empire. His words went unanswered. The human fleet arrived at Vrakthos Prime on the anniversary of Earth's fall. Helena had planned it that way. She wanted the Vrakthos to understand exactly why they were being punished. The final battle was not a battle at all. It was an execution. The Vrakthos home fleet had been drained to defend other systems. Only a few hundred ships remained to protect the Emperor's throne. They fought bravely, but bravery was not enough. Human dreadnoughts tore through their lines like predators through prey. Human soldiers landed on the palace grounds and marched through halls that had never known the footsteps of enemies. Helena was the first human to enter the Emperor's throne room. She walked past the bodies of his guards and stopped before his golden chair. The ancient tyrant looked at her with eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. He expected her to gloat. He expected her to make speeches about victory and vengeance. Instead, she simply raised her weapon and fired. The empire of the Vrakthos ended that day. Their subject species celebrated in the streets. Their military surrendered across the sector. Their history of conquest and cruelty became nothing more than a warning for future generations. Admiral Helena Cross returned to Earth 2 months later. The planet was still scarred from the ancient invasion. Ruined cities covered the continents. The oceans were gray with pollution, but for the first time in 4 decades, human ships filled the sky. Settlers were returning to rebuild their home. Helena stood on the shore where she had played as a child and watched the sun set over the water. She thought about everyone she had lost, her parents, her friends, the billions who had died in the First War. She had not brought them back, but she had given them justice. Behind her, the lights of new cities began to glow in the darkness. The human empire was rising from the ashes of the old world. It would be different from the empires that came before. It would not conquer for power or wealth. It would protect those who could not protect themselves. It would stand against tyrants wherever they arose. The sector belonged to humanity now, and they would never let anyone take it away again.